All right, everyone, welcome back to another monthly Zoom panel called Agents to Agents. Today, we are going over lead generation strategies for buyers. And I am very proud and happy to welcome three esteemed professionals who have found success within their own businesses. I'd like to welcome and give them a chance to introduce themselves. First off, from LoKation Real Estate, Stacy Plean. Secondly, from Urban Nest Realty in Las Vegas, Nick Giorgi. And lastly, from LPT Realty, Mr. Dan DeMott. Welcome, guys. Thank you very much for taking part today. Dan, let's go reverse order. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. You said my name is Dan DeMott. I'm the owner of the Home Source team at LPT Realty. I'm a South Florida native, born and raised around the real estate business. One of those odd people who got his real estate license when he was 18. Grew up around the business, took my family's independent brokerage and turned it into a team. And grew that business over a number of years. And now I split my time between the real estate sales business and coaching agents across the country.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dan. Love to hear your insight today. So thanks for joining us. Nick, enlighten us. Who is Nick Giorgi?
Hello, everyone. I am Nick Giorgi. I am out of the Las Vegas, Nevada market. I have been in real estate just under 5 years. I work for a smaller boutique brokerage. It's called Urban Nest Realty. I have just recently formed a small team myself. So I'm the team lead of that. We consist of 2 buyers agents, myself, an assistant, and a TC. And that's me.
Thank you, Nick. Welcome. And it's cool to hear a perspective coming from a completely different marketplace than many of the people that are on this call. So I really value your input. And last but certainly not least, Stacy Plean. Stacy, introduce yourself.
Hi all, I'm Stacy Plean and I am a member of LoKation Real Estate. I am a broker associate. I am very involved in leadership in our local association, and I am proud that in 2023 I was recognized as one of 20 to be endorsed as Florida Realtors Professional Certified Professional. So thank you.
Definitely running in a small crowd there out of 225,000 realtors to be highlighted as one of 20. That's a very, very prominent recognition. Stacy, congratulations again. But everyone is here today to talk about buyer lead generation strategies, and we're going to jump right in. So let's start off. Nick, you've been sandwiched in the middle both times, so you're going to start us off here. What is your primary source of buyer leads, and why do you find it to be the most effective?
So for me, honestly, we're in a relationship-based business. Primarily, the bulk of my business is from my sphere of influence. I'd say last year, about 65% of my business came from that. So I really dive deep into my SOI. I'm big on holidays, birthday cards, life events. I think that people miss a big mark on the fact of social media. Social media is a resource. People like to show the highlights of their lives, even sometimes the downfalls of their lives. Use that to your advantage. And I make it a point to be able to reach out to my people that I know and congratulate them or give them my sympathy if they've just had a loss. So for me, I'd say that really just diving deep and building those relationships and keeping the people that are already close to you closest, because if you're not dating your clients, somebody else will.
A very, very valid point. We've never had such a window to people's personal lives than when we got onto social media, and it's become a part of everybody's life. Sometimes to the extent that it's a little bit too much. You know, everyone has that friend that says, hey, I went to the bathroom today, or something along those lines, right? It's a little too deep, but you can't get that kind of information out of a CRM. You can't get that information by looking at a lead online, but social media gives you that personal window.
100%.
Stacy, how about yourself? Primary source of buyer leads and why is it effective?
My primary source is I do pay for leads through several different sources. I do the very high end where I'm paying a lot of money per lead, and I find that that is the easiest for me and it's the quickest route to my success. And I also do the pay-per-click with Google. where, that takes a lot of nurturing. I can get 150 to 200 leads every single month, but that also means that I've got to make all of those phone calls, not once, not twice, several times. And although those leads are less money, it takes a lot more time. So there's a balance between me paying a lot of money for leads and less money for leads and trying to balance them out.
Makes a lot of sense. Dan.
Yep. Like Nick, sphere of influence database is our top source. And we know that sort of across the industry, right? I think the NAR stats are like 56% of home buyers come from sphere of influence, or select their agent based on that. Supplementary to that, we've been having a lot of success lately with Facebook Marketplace advertisements and social media posts and paid ads as well. So I'd say that's quickly growing in the current market as a way we're getting right now buyer business.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And Dan, you've been left for last on that last one, so you're going to start us off here. Now, there's always shiny new objects, bells and whistles, technology platforms that come into play. How do you balance digital strategies that hit the marketplace with traditional lead generation methods? Is there any kind of balance there for you, or do you lean one way or the other?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm very big on making sure we have a system in place for the things we know work. And when you have a system in place, right? So for us, that's our database marketing program, right? It's getting out a weekly email, it's calling and texting a portion of our database every week. It's birthday video, text messages, all the basic blocking and tackling. We've got that to become really systematic so we can do it in a compressed time window. It only takes us, probably about 3 to 4 hours a week to fully market to our database. That leaves us with a lot of time to experiment with other stuff. So I'm always looking for the next thing, but we all know that this industry is full of shiny objects that aren't nearly as shiny as they first look. So I never stop doing what works, but we always try to make sure we can be as efficient as possible so we can test things as they come out or as we find them and see that they might have some legs.
Perfect. Love that. It's kind of that 80-20 rule, 80% operating your business, 20% looking for that next piece, right? That new addition.
Absolutely.
Stacy, how about yourself?
My new shiny toy has been my new CRM that has AI built into it, a bot built into it. And at first I was like, oh, they're sending out text messages to new leads and it's kind of weird answers. But it has eventually, as it's gone on, it's gotten better and better. And one of the funny stories is that I recently had the bot reach out. His name is Alex, or her name is Alex. And they reached out to a new buyer and said, hi, it's Alex. We're here to help you. What are you looking for? And the lead went bat crazy on them. I don't want to talk to you. Leave me alone. And so Alex answered and said, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Just know that we're here for you. And if there's anything that we can ever do, please feel free to reach out. And he wrote back, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought I was talking to a bot. So it really has gotten a lot better and it has engaged people. And it's gotten to the point where Alex will say, we'll have Stacy reach out to you. Her number is, and she'll be calling you momentarily. And I immediately get a behavioral response text and I pick up the phone and I call. That's my shiny new toy right now.
Love that. And you stay consistent with it and that gives you some results. Nick, how about yourself? Traditional lead generation methods versus digital strategies and shiny new toys.
So, being a little bit newer in the industry at the very beginning, I was caught up in the shiny objects. And it's easy to do, and it's $20 syndrome is what I call it. It's easy to do, just spend a little bit of money to see what you can get back. But I've really honed back in and refined all of that, and I don't do so much of that. I'm more on the traditional side. I do more like mail marketing has been very big here recently. That's going very well. I've sent out probably $2,000 worth of mailers in the last 3 months. And from that, I've gotten about 4 or 5 listings. And it's just super simple. You do it right around your current active listings that you have, because then they're seeing your signs, they're seeing your open house signs. Then you're hitting them with mail, because then I do just listed, I do just under contract, and then just sold. So they're just really starting to get familiar with your names and things like that. And I'm really niche down into like my farm area. But for the shiny new object, I would actually have to say I'm with Stacy on that. I just changed CRMs recently, and I've been really enjoying this AI feature of it as well, because it really is an added bonus to things when I do a small portion of online leads. So when they're coming in, if I'm with another client, they're at least getting hit and response right away, because it's always speed to lead. So as long as they're getting something right away, I'm noticing that these leads are actually converting a little bit better than they were, because if I was with somebody, I might not be getting back to them for an hour, hour and a half. And so I would say it's just whatever you do, just stick with it and dive deep into it and go for at least 6 months before you just give up on it. Because I think that's the other thing, was that people see something, they try something, and they don't get immediate results, when really you got to give it a little bit of time. You got to figure out how to work it yourself. I mean, I
Consistency.
think we could,
Certainly. Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say, I think we could all agree with that, but you're right. Consistency is key.
You took the words out of my mouth, exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
100%. And what I love about this, and this all just fell into place really well, all three of you have very unique strategies, and all three of you are very successful individual realtors. So I love that everybody who is listening to this can resonate and relate to each one of you in a different way and take away something. So we had a couple questions in the chat, and it actually leads into the exact next question I was going to ask. Stacy and Nick, you both alluded to being tied and consistent with your CRM systems. So what CRM system are you using, and why do you like it? Stacy, go ahead, Nick, and then Dan.
I just recently switched over to Sync. I'm finding it amazing to use. I'm finding it very user friendly, and the whole AI bot is just an added benefit for me. It takes leads from all of my sources, wherever those leads come from, and it propagates them right into there. And if I want Alex, I'm going to call him Alex because he's my bot. If I want him to take over, he does. And if I want to mute him, I can. Because a lot of times I've picked up the phone and I've called somebody, and I don't want Alex calling and speaking, texting with them after I've already had the conversation. It's repetitive and it does make it sound inefficient. So as soon as I've spoken to somebody, I will mute Alex at that point. And it gives me the ability to do that very easily. Easily
controlled, right?
Very easy.
I know you're calling him your bot. You need to start referring to him as your body. B-O-D-T-Y, my body. You spoke to my body, Alex. Great. Nick, go ahead.
So I actually just switched over to Sync as well. I was using Boomtown previously, and their AI, they had a feature that was similar, but it just was not good. It did not sound real at all. And I would even get in the middle of it, and I'd see the text messages that are going, and I'd stop it, and I would just automatically queue in. But with Sync, I've honestly let it ride until I get the notification that I need to reach out.
Gotcha.
So, but then I also use Buffini Referral Maker. So I have two separate. I keep my SOI and my personal people in one, and I do all my online leads in a separate one, so that way I have two systems working, and it's literally an extra $25 a month to keep the referral maker. But that one tells me whether I need to make a phone call, or I need to do like a mailer, or do a pop by on them. And I just enjoy that it just makes it simpler, and it helps my assistant. They know exactly what they need to do to get me ready to get those things done.
Awesome. Dan?
Love that. I'm using Lion Desk currently. It doesn't have as many of the sort of high-tech features, but it is very efficient, very simple software. I'm just a big proponent of, I've used several in the past, but the best CRM is whichever one you will actually log into and use on a consistent basis. No amount of AI will do that. I'll put out there, while we're having sort of an AI chatbot conversation, I've been using a tool called ManyChat, which is sort of an in-between. I'm not fully on board with full AI automation yet, but I also, like Nick pointed out, know that a lead can't sit in your inbox for too long before it goes completely cold. It needs some sort of immediate response. So for online leads through Facebook and Instagram ads, I've been using ManyChat, where if someone sends me a direct message or comments on one of my posts, that will automatically send a series of pre-programmed messages, and it just buys me enough time to be able to get back on and take over that conversation.
Again, different strategies, but all very effective. And Lion Desk, from what I understand, is a significant price reduction from Commissions Inc.
Yes,
So,
it is. It is the low cost option, but it does everything a CRM needs to do.
don't get too hung up, people, on which CRM you're going in. Set yourself a pattern, stay consistent, and use the one that you're going to go into, whatever cost price point that is. You just need to stay consistent with it. Now, time wasting and efficiency is probably a premier thing that you guys are focusing on within your business. You can't afford to do the volume that each of you do and waste hours of your time every single week. So how do you determine which leads are worth pursuing and which you should let go and ignore? Dan, we'll start with you. We'll go to Stacy and then Nick.
Yeah, well, that's actually an interesting question. I operate from a simple framework. Everyone who's in my database is someone I'm either going to do business with right now or eventually. So I actually don't treat them very differently. If you come into my database, you're going to get the same emails as everybody else. You're going to get the same call cadence, same mailers, all the same interactions. But we are fairly strict about our definition of a pending lead or something coming in, right? So someone can only sit on our pipeline for 60 days before they either move forward in the process or fall out. And because they're just falling back into that general database and we're going to nurture that relationship, they'll come back at some future time when they're within that 60-day window.
Okay, Stacy?
So like I said before, I have different sources that I get my leads from, and I have a lead source that's direct connect. So they're actually getting the buyer or seller on the phone and connecting them to me. Those to me are the ones that if they're taking the time to reach out to that website or that whatever it is, and they're waiting to speak to an agent, that's somebody who's ready and wants to buy or sell. So those get my top priority. The ones that answer my drips or my bodies, as Jonathan likes to put it, they'll get my attention. And then there's the ones that are just going to be nurtured, and I watch and how many times have they logged on? When was the last time they've logged on? And even though I have a car that has a great radio system, I don't think I've turned on my radio in 3.5 years in my car, because that's when I make my calls. When I've got my downtime and I'm driving somewhere, that's when I'll sit and I'll make my calls. So I use every minute I can to lead generate.
Awesome. Nick, wrap it up for us.
Yeah, so I mean, we all kind of have a little bit of different ways. I'm super personable. I'm quick to be on the phone with somebody. I think that the further that you can dive deep with somebody and make this about them is the more that they are going to be interested in you. That's what I've noticed. So I'm big with the questions. Every single one of us probably have a series of 5 to 10 questions that as soon as a lead or a person comes in, that we ask them. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't, that should be the number one thing that you should start figuring out for yourself, because the engagement, you could tell just by asking within the first 5 questions of my 5 to 10 that I have, they're real serious or they're not very serious. And I can let this go here quicker and fizzle them out.
Well, you just mentioned 5 or 10 questions or qualifying questions at the beginning to get to know somebody's process. And like me, people in the audience want to know, what are some of these important questions? So if you can pick out, give me 2 or 3 questions that you use to either build a relationship or qualify a customer. Nick, since you mentioned it, we're starting with you.
Yeah. First and foremost, I mean, I'm in Las Vegas. We're a very transient city. So an easy way for me to like start a conversation is when I recognize that the area code is not a local area code, I'll say, oh, hey, where are you from? What's your motivation for moving here? What has you looking? Do you have family out here? Just trying to dive deep into their why. What's the purpose? Is it job? Is it family? Is it retirement is because, you know, Las Vegas, we have no state income tax, just like Florida. So that's huge here. You know, and then from there, I pick out other questions based on what their answers are too. You know, if it's retirement, oh, well, when are you looking to retire? What's the time frame looking like? Have you been to Vegas before? Are you currently here? Are you planning a trip that we can go out and look at properties? Little things like that. And really, my questions just kind of start stemming from the one or two base questions that I have, and then I just start figuring out like, okay, all right, okay, oh no, they're not really serious, or oh, they're really serious, like they're gonna be a hot mover, or this is what I'm gonna be nurturing. So that's kind of my way of doing it, is just really trying to dive deep into their why and getting them to talk. The first phone call, I really don't say much about myself. Like, it's not about me, it's all about them.
Yeah, so there is a sales method that I teach consistently when I'm doing classes. It's the 5 steps to a sale, and the first step is meet and greet. You're really trying to build rapport and gain insight onto who they are, why they're doing it, that you can find some type of angle to build a connection and rapport with them. Meanwhile, during that conversation, you're figuring out what they do for a living, and that's helping you also qualify them as being either a qualified buyer, somebody that should have the consistency in income, potentially credit, et cetera. Obviously, we haven't earned the right to ask them, hey, what's your credit score? That's not going to be
Right.
one of the initial questions. But, you know, based on their income, where they work, where they're coming from, their relocation, their familial status, things like that, it helps you qualify.
100%.
So
Absolutely. Or do they currently own, or are they looking to buy investment or sell investment, things like that? Like, have you done this before is the best one, really.
Dan, do you work the same way with the initial kind of conversation?
Yeah, very, very similar. The first thing I want to start with is getting to know the person. My first question is always, you know, tell me about yourself. And, you know, and if anybody struggles there, I always like to say, you know, you were born and then what happened? Because depending on how much information they will share with you will help you qualify, as you pointed out. Then I usually want to go into, you know, so what some of the motivation, why now, what has us talking today? What's the game plan? Where do you want to go? One of the most powerful questions I've ever learned, it's a follow-up to any question, is tell me more about that. And then why is that important to you? All right. You can learn so much with why is that important to you about a client.
Human nature is to just be diarrhea of the mouth. You ask a question and they want to talk about it because it's passionate for them, right?
Yes. It's also the best way. Some of the people who walk away from a conversation and tell me they feel a strongest connection between us are the conversations where I've said nothing, right? Because the more people talk about themselves, the more they feel like, you know, they've connected with you. And then the last question I always ask as part of my pre-qualification is, give me the perfect scenario, right? What do we accomplish and how soon does that happen, right? We're buying the retirement home and it's got all the things you need, and tell me what those are and when are you there, right? Now I understand the whole picture, right? What's the goal? If they can really the more clearly they can articulate that in terms of what it looks like and when they're there, the more serious I know they are.
Stacy?
So I think the building a rapport right from the start is something that I think we all do. Like Nick, I'll look at the area code. Sometimes I'll hear a dog barking in the background. I'll go, oh my God, do you have a dog? What kind of dog do you have? And everybody likes talking about their dog. So it breaks the ice immediately. Sometimes there's kids crying in the background. Whatever it is, you've got to be in sync to what's going on in that telephone conversation. And then from there, once the rapport is started, I'm trying to get answers to my questions without making it seem as if I'm questioning them. More to the extent of, so you called about the house on Main Street. What is it about that house that you had really liked? And they'll start telling me, and we'll go through your wish list, your must-have list, and your hard nose. And that gives you a lot of insight into what they're looking for.
Perfect. Now, you all didn't start off in this industry perfect and established and doing transactions as the volume that you are now. So there were definitely lessons learned along the way. So I'm going to ask y'all for your humility here. what are some mistakes that you made along the way that either you made or you saw another person make that we can all learn from? We're going reverse. Stacy, then Dan, then Nick.
So, you start out and you start getting leads from sources and you're like, oh, this is good. I'm just going to throw more money at it. And I'm going to throw more money at it. And I'm going to throw more money at this. I'm going to throw more money at that. And you realize that you're throwing a lot of money away. So stick with what works best for you and nurture that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go and try other things, but you have to be prepared to try it for at least 6 months and give it a shot. I've tried certain things so many times and it just doesn't work, even though so many people say, oh my God, it works great for me. It doesn't work for me. So I've got to move on from it. And that to me is my learning lesson, because I've thrown money at stuff, because the more money, I've always said, the more money I throw at something, the more money I'll make. Well, I keep extreme records of where my lead came from, what zip code they came from me, what zip code they ended up buying in, where they came from me at the price point that we started, where they ended up buying at, so that I can put together where my best lead sources are.
Dan?
I mean, if I had a quarter for every mistake I've made in this business, I would be retired. So the mistakes are endless. I would say if I could go, maybe the better way that I could address the question is if I could go back and do one thing differently, I would have started maintaining my database sooner and invested more consistently in that. When I coach agents, one of the first questions I ask them is, open up your phone, open up your iPhone or your Android, or wherever you got, open the contacts app, tell me how many people you have in there. Most people have hundreds to thousands, a couple thousand of names, phone numbers, and email addresses sitting in their mobile phone, and yet we are all looking for who we could pay to get other people's contact information, right? And buy leads under the false pretense that they're higher intent than the people who are in our phone. And so if I could do one thing differently, it would be go back, set up my database, put every single person that I ever meet into it, and nurture those relationships. Because what I know is I lost millions of dollars of commission by not doing that earlier in my business.
I don't know how many people on this call just did what I did, but I opened my phone and I scrolled down and I looked to see how many contacts I had. I haven't looked at that in years. 31 people.
How many was it?
3,167.
So if I can have another minute, I don't want to hijack it, but here's a quick exercise I always tell everyone to do, because this will make everyone understand it in their head. The national average cost of a Zillow lead is $65 per name and phone number, right? If you're in South Florida or Las Vegas, then that number is much higher. So let's just say $100, right? Open the contacts app on your phone, scroll down to the bottom. If it's an iPhone, if it's at the Android, it's at the top. How many contacts you have in there, multiply that by $100. That's how much it would cost you to buy back all that contact information from Zillow. Now, if you wrote that check, would you treat the contact information differently?
Valid point. That's that epiphany moment right there. Stacy, go ahead. You want to add on to that? And then
I hate to tell you how many contacts I have in my phone. And I don't want to do the math.
Nick.
70, almost 7,300 contacts in my phone.
Nick, round us out there. Mistakes that you would do over.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it was actually treating my business like a business. I came from the restaurant and hospitality industry, and it was just a very different world than getting in here, except for the customer service aspect. So that's where I really excelled at the beginning. But my very first 2 years in the industry, I didn't even have a CRM. Going back to that point, get something, whether it is a CRM or it's a Google Sheet or it's an Excel sheet. Like, treat your business like a business. Work at minimum 4 hours a day. Do all the things that you need to be doing to push yourself forward to succeed. go to the office, surround yourself with like-minded individuals that are doing better than you. That would, for me, I would say was probably my number one thing that I did, was surrounded myself with people that have been in the industry a long time, were top producers, things of that nature. And that is what kind of catapulted my career quickly, was that I learned from the mistakes that they had made, and I didn't want to make those mistakes. So I started really diving deep into myself and my business and doing better than the day I did before.
So everyone has a different method of tracking success of a specific advertising campaign. Some are done more focused on branding and brand recognition. Some are more focused on lead generation. Some are more focused on just closings, right? So how do you track or measure the success of a specific lead generation effort? Is it directly tied to bottom line, or is it more brand awareness and goodwill and name recognition within your marketplace? What signifies success? We're going to go reverse here. Nick, start us off.
So for me, I would say that it's more brand recognition, because my goal is, to a point, I don't want to have to do online leads at all. I would rather just work with either my sphere of influence or referrals or people that are just knowing me because of my brand that I've built. Like I said, I really have been diving deep into my farm. If there's any possible way, I do a couple of online lead sources. One of them, I went straight to the zip code that my farm's in. Like I said, I push all my open houses around that farm. I live in that farm. Like, so everybody knows me. I go on 6 a.m. morning walks. I wear a shirt that has a huge logo on my back. People know who I am. I say hello to every person that I walk by. I make sure I bring my dog with me, just because it's an easy point of contact, because the dog runs up to them and gets excited, little things like that. So for me, it's brand recognition, I would say, all day.
With the logo on your back while you run, I hope you're fast. Dan, keep us going.
Yeah, for me, I think if I look at it again on a couple different bases. If we're investing in something, real money, like we're buying leads or testing out a new product, then I want to track to a direct ROI. How many, over some period of commitment, whether it's 6 months or a year, how many deals can I directly say we sourced from that? But I will always soften that by saying I generally use like 3% of my database. So if I'm adding names to my database, that still has value for me, even if they're not directly converting, because for every 100 names I add to my database, I know that I've got 3 referrals or deals in there for the long term, as long as I can continue to nurture those. So I'm always looking at those two things. If I'm investing in something, I want to know that I'm getting an ROI on it, but as a backup, as long as I'm adding names to my database, I know I'm getting value.
Awesome. Stacy?
So I try to brand myself, and it's constantly, I work with my husband, so it's constantly Stacy and Doug, Stacy and Doug, Stacy and Doug, Stacy and Doug. And I'm far from shy, so I could be sitting at the deli and somebody might be talking about, oh, the neighbor down the street is selling their house. They're getting X amount of dollars for it. I wonder if I could get that. And I'll just barge into their conversation and I'll hand them a card. There's a lot of times that I've been wearing a realtor shirt of some sort, or I have a pin on of some sort, and people say, oh, you're a realtor? One of the last listings that we got was because we were at the supermarket and somebody saw that we were wearing shirts that are branded by us. And they said, oh, you're in real estate? My parents are going into assisted living. I want to list their house. I don't know anybody. I'm not from the area.
Awesome. So, Dan, your comments in the chat have sparked a couple responses here. So I'm going to bring this forward as a question, not necessarily the direct question there, but we all talk about sphere of influence, and your initial couple deals when you're getting into the industry are going to come from your sphere of influence. So we talked about those contacts in your phone. And I'm going to go to you first on this because it was your talking point. So we have all these contacts in our phone. We start this business. We have a bunch of people that we already know. How do you market to your sphere without being that annoying, spammy person?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're in the best business possible for that, right? Because the reality is, as a real estate agent, you can talk about almost anything. It's about staying relevant and top of mind for them more than it is about always putting out real estate content. So we do quarterly calls and texts for our whole database. We have some scripts. Sometimes they're more real estate focused. Sometimes they're value add, like, hey, if you got any projects going on, I've got a great vendor network, we can help you out. Or, hey, my AC guy's running a special right now, you know, and if you let them know that I sent you, you're going to get a discount on a service. But a lot of times it's just, hey, how are you? How's the family? How's life? Is there anything, you know, we're here for you, not about real estate. Just if you never need anything, we're here, right? And so we do that. Same thing with emails. We send out a weekly email to our database. 2/3 of it is not about real estate, right? 2/3 of it is about things I've got going on in my personal life, junk I bought my kids on Amazon that's fun to play with, movies I watch, books I read, podcasts I listen to. And then also we put in some real estate content. Hey, here's the local market stats and what you need to know about them. Hey, here's an interesting article about the real estate market. The balance, the part that people misunderstand when they say, I don't want to be spammy or I don't want to be salesy, is that we live in a noisy world. We have phones, social media, 24-hour news cycle, podcasts, TV, Netflix, streaming, all these things, right? You have to cut through the noise. The only way to cut through the noise is frequency of communication. You know, we send an email blast out. If you get a 20 to 30% open rate on your emails, you're knocking it out of the park. So the reality is, if let's say just use easy math, you get a 20% open rate, you need to send 5 emails for any chance of everyone in your database to open it, right? Because 80% of the people just don't see it. You're mixed in with the other hundreds of emails they got. So you got to up the frequency of communication. That's why social media is a super powerful tool as well, because you could post every day. So essentially you could have 365 pieces of communication or more there. But most people fall for the trap of, I don't want to be salesy. Don't be salesy. Be relationship based, be fun, but increase the frequency of communication so that you actually cut through and stay top of mind.
I really like the idea of, hey, my AC guy has a discount in case you had any AC stuff coming up, because you're not reaching out to try and sell them something. You're reaching out to be a resource. I really like that idea for staying front of mind. Stacy, Nick, anything you guys want to add on to that?
You know, when I speak to somebody, a lot of times I'll tell them that we're very concierge and we will hold your hand. There's sometimes I'm working with first-time home buyers and I'm going to hold their hand all the way through. And then there's sometimes that I'm working with people that are moving into an independent or assisted living, and I'm going to hold their hand as well. And just being that person I'm not all about the end of the day collecting my check. I'm genuinely there for them, and not just for the sake of the deal, but further on down the line. I will call, I will go visit, I will check on how they're doing. They just had a baby, I'll send a gift. You know, it's all about that relationship. And because you're staying top of mind, they're going to say, oh, by the way, my friend is moving and I just gave them your name. And it's genuine, and you've got to come off as being genuine.
Love that. Nick?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's the going above and beyond and separating yourself from the rest. You know, Jonathan said it earlier, it's about being consistent. And even Dad mentioned it. Be the source of the source. Like, we are our clients' best allies. So be that ally. Be that person that can consistently be there for them and providing them the resources that they need, whether it's before they even are starting to look, while they're looking, or even after they've closed on that property. That's what our job is. I always tell my clients, I'm not the agent that just closes on this house and I just go away. You are now a part of my circle. And if you ever need anything, I'm always going to be here for you, no matter what it is, whether it's recommendations to restaurants because you just moved to the area, or doctors, or you have AC furnace things that are going on. Call me first. I want to be your first call because, again, to Dan's point, I have relationships with all of my vendors that I recommend on a regular basis, and most of them are going to give my people some sort of discount or make it look like they're getting a discount from my vendor because I gave them their telephone number. So it's just something else that makes you look good as an individual and as an agent.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think that Oh, sorry, Jonathan.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that ties in really well. Like I said, we do the vendor network and vendor savings and a lot of stuff like that. But what I always tell my agents is if they call you when their hot water heater leaks, they are going to call you when they need to sell their house. We want them to call us for as many things as possible. Like you need to know what private schools are open, who has childcare, you know, what the best gymnastics school is. I got two young daughters. We got gymnastics and dance and swimming going on. Call me for anything, because if they're calling you for all that other stuff, when it comes time to sell their house, you're their first call.
100%. And the other thing to like cue off of that a little bit too is that like when they call you when the AC goes out, or they call you when the water heater just went out, like that's a cue. Like, hey, can I come over? Can I bring you towels? Can I drop off a portable AC? Like I have all of that. And I do all of that because it's just, it puts me in front of them. It's another reason to check on them in person. And now you're being of assistance and helping them with the situation that just occurred.
When you're in Las Vegas and you're talking about triple digit temperatures, that portable AC is pretty valuable.
Oh, 100. I keep 3 of them in my garage.
Stacy, you were going to tack onto that.
I was just gonna tack on, I have a buyer who bought a home from me several years ago, and the insurance market was not what it's like right now. And he called me and he said, I know it's been so many years since I bought the house, but I was wondering, do you still by any chance have my wind mitigation from when I did the wind mitigation so that I could use it and give it to the insurance company? They said if it's within 5 years, they can still use it. And I said, sure, no problem, hold on. And while I was on the phone with him, I went into the file, because I keep it all on the cloud, went into the file, sent it to him. He goes, oh my God, that's amazing that you still had that and I didn't have it. And just little things like that. At the end of the year, I'll send out their altas so that they could file their homestead, remind them to file their homestead, all my new buyers. It just goes into the envelope. After I've closed, it sits on my desk until November.
Yeah, that's a nice little extra touch point post-close. Now, I want to hit one more thing relating to databases and CRMs. So everyone, when you go into a CRM, you create some type of nurture campaign, email, text message, whatever, just to stay in front of them and have a certain touch point of communication, at least every so often, right? So when a contact stops responding, stops engaging, stops opening the emails per se, how do you handle a cold lead to kind of reinitiate that communication or that engagement with them? Let's go reverse. I'm going to go Nick, Stacy, Dan.
So I'll take a look at the notes, and I'll see, just try to find something that we had spoken about, that could be like a key point of maybe why they went cold on me in the first place. And for all of us right now, I mean, interest rates were a hot one. As we've all seen in the last week or so, interest rates have come down. So that's what my emails have been about in the past couple of weeks. And now we're starting to actually like do like the bomb video right into it as well, to kind of just have that conversation. And I'm saving that bomb and I'm also like texting it to them too. So that way they're seeing me, they're seeing who I am, and trying to just reignite that spark that was there at one point.
Okay. Stacy, go ahead.
For me, when I see that all of a sudden somebody's gone cold or started ghosting me a little bit, I tend to pick up the phone and I'll make a phone call, especially when it's emails that they're not responding to. And I'm going to say that probably 7 or 8 times out of 10, they've decided to change their email because that email was getting so much junk. So they don't even open that email anymore. And they never bother to go back on and change it with me. So I'm opening up that conversation. I'm letting them know that I'm following, not following them as in stalking, but concerned, just wanted to see how you were doing. Is everything okay?
Okay. Dan, what's your strategy?
Yeah, I would say that's the first. I have a very similar first step to Stacy. If they're just not responding on one line of communication, I'm going to try a different line. So if we're getting nowhere on email, I'm going to try a text. And then I use one super simple text message that usually does a really good job. I text, "Are you okay?" ? Because that's what you would do if you knew someone and cared about them and they ghosted you. Right. And I want to treat everyone in my database like that. And so if we're having a conversation and you stop replying to me, I'm going to say, "Are you okay?" out of genuine concern, like, because you must be in the hospital. Otherwise, any normal, sane person would say, hey, I'll get back to you, or I'm not ready, or let's revisit this in 3 months.
It's funny you mentioned that. I mean, leading a large brokerage, I am solicited by people all day, every day, and I commonly ignore spam and delete people's emails, marketing emails per se, right?
Mhm.
So I actually responded to one who did exactly that. I never would have considered it with all the marketing emails, but then it was, hey, are you all right? And it inclined me to think that it was a human being I was actually interacting with. And so I responded. It actually became a product that we offer here at the company. So you never know, right?
Yeah, you got to break through the noise. I also, to that point, I like to use, we use a couple little strategies that I think people should use to enhance that sense of a personal communication. One is I send all of my emails plain text. Don't use any graphic design or like a MailChimp kind of thing. Plain text email, because that is how you would email a friend or family member. So with significantly higher open rates when you do that. We also use emojis in the subject line for that same reason. Another great tool that we use is called the Reach app for text messaging. What the Reach app allows you to do is send a personalized mass text. So you can do a merge field, hi Nick, hi Stacy, hi Dan, but with the same message, and it comes from your actual phone. So there's a couple benefits to there, TCPA compliance, big benefit to doing that. But one other big advantage, and I don't mean to start a rally cry here, but if you're an iPhone person, you know that you have there's a difference between blue bubbles and green bubbles, and blue bubbles only come from real people's phones. And so with the Reach app, you get a blue bubble. And so you can send a mass text out from your personal cell phone with a blue bubble. And I have had people reply to me and say, if this didn't come from an iPhone, I never would have replied to you.
Valid point. Okay, so going forward, generating leads again. Open houses are always a big way that coaches and mentors teach new agents to start building a network and start building and finding buyers leads, which is going to look a little bit different come tomorrow, actually, August 17th. So what is your approach to generating leads through open houses, and why is it beneficial? Stacy, I'll start with you, then we'll go Dan, then we'll go Nick.
So, first of all, my clients most of the time want to do an open house. They feel that we're going to get more exposure. They know that I do a bunch of marketing and advertising for that open house. So they want it. It's not my favorite thing in the world to do, but I do them, and I do get leads from it. A lot of times I've gotten what I call tire kickers or neighbors coming in. But there's been for sure times that I've gotten, leads from it. Just recently I had a home listed on a street in a community, and the neighbor from down the street came in. I thought it was just a neighbor kind of being nosy, and they called me the next day and asked me to list their house that was 5 houses away. So you never know, and you've just got to go ahead and do it and put a smile on your face and do the marketing and do the campaigning for it. And again, it's not about us. It's about our clients and making our clients feel that they are important, and we are doing everything to put the most money in their pocket.
Love that. Was it my go? Sorry. Jonathan, you get muted.
Oh, he's muted.
All right, there we go.
I haven't used it before. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, so my approach with open houses is a little untraditional. Like Stacy said, I'm usually pretty upfront with my sellers to say, we're going to do an open house, so we want to give you the best service possible. But I'll just be honest with you, I've never sold a house off an open house. The chance that the buyer for your home walking in here on an open house is almost zero. But we're going to do it because we do a great job for everyone. So I always give my sellers that disclosure. And for me, an open house actually is not an opportunity to get buyers so much as an opportunity to find my next listing in that neighborhood. So the reason I like to use an open house is it gives me a really good excuse to call and door knock the neighbors, say, your neighbor just hired me to list their home. Hint, hint, I'm trustworthy. Second, this is a beautiful neighborhood. I'm sure you love it. I'm sure you must know somebody who would like to live here, right? Help me find your neighbor, right? So maybe you get a buyer lead there. But the third part is the most important. I always say, when I sell that house, it's going to be a record sale or sell quickly, and I'm going to have multiple offers. I'm going to have people who want to live in this neighborhood and who don't get the opportunity to buy. Do you want to know what that means for the value of your home? Right? And that is a killer opener. And we use that same script not only at the open house, but again when we close, where we're going to go back and call and door knock and tell everybody, hey, we just sold your house, record high price, multiple offers, closed in 10 days. Do you want to know what that means for you? So the open house is a perfect excuse to go find your next listing. Whenever somebody sells in a neighborhood, we know somebody else lists shortly after that.
Nick?
Yeah, I'm very much like Dan. I use it as a marketing avenue all day long when I do open houses. First thing that I do is I create the flyer and we go out and door knock that. We'll do that probably 2 days before. I always make sure to leave the flyer. Then the day before we are calling, and I put my signs out at about 8 a.m. And then I make sure that the sign has the for sale sign in the yard has like a rider on it that says what time I'm going to be there. And my favorite part is that people will call, hey, I saw all your open house signs, but the house isn't open yet. Oh yeah, on the sign it says I'll be there from 11 to 2, but what's your name? And I'll make sure to call you back as soon as I'm there, about 10 minutes before, and I make sure to call those people. But it's a way for me to get somebody's contact information that I maybe wouldn't have had even prior to. So I always make sure that my signs are out super early, and if I'm doing a 2-dayer, I leave them out overnight. So I just use it all the way to market, but I also tell my clients, like, the likelihood of me selling your home here at this open house is slim to none. But I've actually done it one time, so I always had it happen one time that I've actually sold the house at the open house. But other than that, like, we are here to market your house because the likelihood, though, your neighbors know somebody that may want to move in here, but it's an opportunity for me to get to meet all of your neighbors.
Awesome. So we only have 6 minutes left, and I want to give us a chance. I have one more question that I think is very, very relevant. And then I want to give each of you a 30-second or a minute to just wrap up and leave anybody with exactly input or advice that you would leave somebody with. So the last question I'm going to ask is, how are you approaching the new NAR settlement requirements regarding buyer rep agreements in your lead gen process? How are you approaching these conversations? And whoever wants to go first can go first.
I'll start. I'm really keeping it simple. I think that the more you try to complicate it, the more confused the consumer is going to be. So I go with the KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid. And I explain that it's a new policy and it's a change that's taking over most of the United States, and we all have to do it. And of course, I want to do the best deal for them. And the only way that I can open a door is to have a pre-touring or a touring or a buyer broker agreement signed with them. And it's not obligating them to anything past what we're going to see. And if we decide that we're going to work with each other further, we'll change the agreement. Everything is changeable. Everything is negotiable.
Thank you, Stacy. And I appreciate you staying away from numbers. And if I could give everybody that disclaimer, please stay away from numbers. Whoever would like to go next.
Yeah, so I'm happy to go. I love what Stacy said. I think that we have this huge opportunity now to start treating buyers like we treat listings, which is to really sit them down and articulate our value proposition and what we do. I would highly suggest everyone spend a lot of time looking at some of the NAR reports about what buyers want. If you just Google what do buyers want from their real estate agent, you'll get to a bunch of great articles about what people are actually looking for. Include that in your presentation, address those concerns. The other thing that I'm training a lot of agents on right now that I think is a huge opportunity is the touring agreement. Especially if you're doing any kind of leads, or if you have leads that come in, if you're doing rentals, or you're in the lead business where people come in, they want to see a house, right? Or maybe you've got someone who they think they want to work with you, but they're uncertain about it. The touring agreement is really a great way to date without getting married. So to use a simple analogy, and to lock someone into an agreement to say, hey, we're going to work together. I'm going to show you houses. I'm not going to charge you anything. This is not a forever commitment, but we're going to try out working together. And if it works for both of us, we're going to have a conversation about what my services include to fully represent you. The touring agreement is, I think, a secret weapon for a lot of agents if you learn how to use that into your process.
Awesome. Nick, and yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really not differentiating much from either of them. I firmly believe in keeping it simple. Don't over do anything with it. You have to explain it and keep it as simple as possible, but you also have to know when to use which documents in a sense. You know, you have the opportunity to, like Stacy said, negotiate it. I mark a majority of mine that because we actually rolled this out as soon as this got played out, we've been doing it now for 15 days. So I just marked like it's property specific. The properties that I'm showing you are the properties that we will then be working together on. But we'll have a conversation if something isn't working out between us, then I will not hold you to this agreement. I will let you go because I don't want to work with people that don't want to work with me because that's just a bigger headache at the end of the day.
Agreed. All right, go ahead, Dan. You want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing because this kind of keeps coming out with people, and I think so many agents are overthinking it. There's a really great script here that every agent needs to learn. It's like 2 sentences. I'm never going to let my commission stand between you and getting your dream home. That simple statement will remove the vast majority of buyer concerns, and the realities of the market are going to play out in your favor. I'm not saying anybody should work for free, but the realities are that things aren't likely to work that way. And if you know that script, you can get buyers at ease in contract and go back to doing business. Because the reality from a mindset standpoint, without using numbers, buyers agents have always taken whatever was offered to them. It may not have always been what you want. I've certainly sold houses to people and got paid less than I wished I had for the amount of work I invested. That's part of our business. And once you understand that, nothing's really changed. Put your buyer at ease, promise them that they're going to get 100% of your best service, and that no matter what happens, you're not going to let commission get in the way of them buying their dream home, and you're going to do great.
Really, really well said. I love that statement, and I think that's something that everybody on this call should walk away with. Now, we are getting ready to wrap up. I want to give each of you an opportunity to say, what would you like to leave our viewers with, the ones that are here and the ones that will watch this recording? What is one statement that you want to leave as an impression to improve their buyer lead generation strategies? Nick, go first.
Yeah. I would say, you know, somebody said to me early on in my real estate career, and it's the Nike slogan, just do it. Don't be afraid of it. Just do it and be consistent with whatever it is that you are doing. And you will see the difference from today in 6 months from now. And you'll thank yourself.
Stacy?
As a agent right here in South Florida, or if any agents that are on this that have any questions that want to reach out to me, feel free. My phone is open. My door is open. I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to meet. I'm happy to help. And, you know, my whole thing is that, again, I want agents out there who are doing the right thing for the consumers, because that's how we as realtors are going to survive and make ourselves professional.
And your hair looks fantastic today, by the way. Dan, wrap it up for us.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to buyer lead generation, everything works if you stick to it for a long enough period of time. And thankfully, we live in 2024. You can go on YouTube and find someone making $1 million selling real estate doing anything. The only question is, will you do what they do to get those results? And like Stacy, my door is always open. I do stuff like this because I want to elevate our profession and have consumers get a better experience. So you can find me at Dan DeMott on Instagram and Facebook. On my website, dandemott.com, is all free resources for real estate agents. So if you check out any of that stuff, we're always putting out new things to help real estate agents be successful. So I'm an open book. Anybody can reach out to me, and I'm glad to be helpful.
Love that. So we don't have a date on next month's session yet because I have a lot of travel next month, but the topic will be about negotiating compensation and overcoming obstacles in compensation when cultivating a deal. So it's going to be get us a month into all of these changes being applied, and let's go with lessons learned and be better together. So thank you, panelists, for joining us today. I love that. And yes, Nick, your hair looks great too. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for your time and thank you for attending, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
Thank you.
Thanks all.